Welcome and thank you for joining us for today's Healing and Recovery Grants information session. My name is Dana Harris from the Hunter New England Central Coast PHN, the Safe and Healthy team, and I'll be helping to facilitate today's session. I'd like to start by acknowledging the traditional custodians of the lands that we are meeting on today and pay my respects to elders past, present and emerging. I'm joined here today by Marissa Wilson, PHN's Grant and Business Development Coordinator, and Shannon Richardson, Manager for the Safe and Healthy team here at the PHN. Before I hand over to Marissa and Shannon, a few housekeeping matters. The guidelines for today's grants have been pinned to the top of the chat, as well as sent to all registered emails. It can also be found on our website. We ask that all questions be placed into the question and answer section of the Teams today, which can be found at the top of the screen next to the chat box. We will answer the questions at the end of today's session. We are recording today's session and it will be available on the PHN website shortly after today's session. And there will be an email after the session of any discussed resources, as well as the grant email for any other questions you may have. Other than that, over to you, Marissa.
Thank you and welcome everyone, and thank you again for your interest in these grants. We're very excited about being able to offer them to you as well, and it is really an opportunity that is much needed to get some services on the ground, particularly we hope in some areas that may be lacking some of these healing and recovery services. Just a little bit about the agenda for today. I'm just going to touch a little bit on Hunter New England Central Coast Primary Health Network, particularly for those who may not know who we are or have had involvement with us before. Then just talk a little bit about our domestic, family and sexual violence and primary care initiatives. And then we'll go into the grants, the guidelines and the process for applying for those grants. And then, of course, we'll have questions at the end. So we do encourage you to pop your questions in the chat and we will address those at the end. But please remember that there is a lot of people on this webinar. So if it is specific to your organisation, we will answer those specific questions by email and we'll give you that address later. But just to pick up on what Dana was saying, that all of our information about this grant is available on our website, which is thephn.com.au, and there is a section on the home landing page, which is our grants program. If you go to that section, you will see this grant and all the related information, including the guidelines that you can download. Thank you. Next one, thanks. So what is primary care? Now, primary care is probably best summed up as everything outside of the hospital doors. So it is the healthcare people seek in the community, and that can be GPs, pharmacies, allied health professionals like your chiropractics or your physiotherapists. It can be aged care and services to those in aged care facilities. So it covers a wide range of health services, but just remember that it is outside of the hospital system. It allows patients to receive the right care at the right time, and it is critical to ensure health in the population. Thanks, Dana. So what is the Primary Health Network? Now, there is 31 primary health networks, and as mentioned, we're the Hunter, New England and Central Coast Primary Health Network. The primary health networks were set up by the Department of Health and Aged Care in 2014. But even though we were set up by the government, we are all independent, not-for-profit organisations with DGR1 status. Now, our region, and this is probably an important point if you are applying for a grant, our region covers from the Central Coast up to the Queensland border, to the Moree area, and then out towards the Narrabri region, but noting that on the coast, we only go up as far as Taree. So any services and projects that we fund must be delivered within those 23 LGAs, and those LGAs cover about 1.2 million people. Thanks, Dana. Our strategic purpose here is to increase equity of access to primary care across our region, and that is one of the main principles guiding our grants as well, so something to keep in mind for that. We do not provide health services as such. We are a commissioning service. So we commission service providers to improve efficiency and quality of primary care services in the community. So that includes a whole range of health services, including mental health, drug and alcohol, First Nations, general practice, older persons programs, rural health, and the after hours and urgent care clinics that you may have seen popping up recently. So whilst we're a commissioning organisation, we have some flexibility, and that is where these grants come in. So we can explore innovative solutions to fill gaps that we've identified in healthcare in the community. And we can use our grants to fill those gaps by going out to the market, to service providers such as yourself, and asking for applications on how to fill those areas of need. Thanks, Dana. So I'm going to hand over now to Shannon. Shannon is going to talk about the Healing and Recovery grants and the more specifics of the program that we want to roll out. Thanks, Shannon.
Thanks, Marissa. Hello, everyone. So the Healing and Recovery grants support trauma-informed, recovery-focused initiatives for victim survivors of domestic, family and sexual violence. This funding is designed to assist those who have moved through the crisis stage and are now rebuilding their lives following experiences of violence. So with a total of $1 million in available funding for our region, these grants aim to enhance mental health therapies, encourage innovative approaches and promote holistic recovery through community-driven programs for adults, children and young people. This initiative supports children and young people as victim survivors in their own right. These are non-recurrent funds which aim to seed innovative grassroots initiatives within the Hunter New England and Central Coast region, addressing the mental health impacts on domestic, family, sexual violence and fostering community-centred healing and recovery. Because these funds are non-recurrent, recipients of the grant will be invited to participate in workshops on tender writing and evaluation impact. And these workshops will assist services in hopefully securing alternate funding sources to sustain the initiatives beyond the initial seed funding period. Additionally, successful recipients will have the opportunity to present their initiatives and outcomes at an upcoming PHN Healing and Recovery Forum, which will be, we're thinking will be in around early 2026. The Hunter New England Central Coast PHN is only one of 6 PHNs that were selected to pilot these healing and recovery initiatives. So each initiative will undergo evaluation, and these successful applications will be expected to collaborate with the PHN on that program evaluation. And that's really important because we want to ensure that these services become business as usual and, hopefully rolled out to all of our 31 PHNs across the country. This is the first instance of Commonwealth funding specifically allocated for healing and recovery. So previously, most of services have been funded to primarily focus on either prevention or crisis intervention. And whilst increased investment in frontline services and prevention remains crucial, and we need that sustained funding, we're really excited to see funding directed towards the healing and recovery stages of a victim survivor's journey. Dana, next slide, please. So this particular funding aligns directly to the healing and recovery domain in the National Plan to End Violence Against Women and Children, 2022 to 2032. Again, this was the first time that a dedicated healing and recovery domain was included in the National Plan. To assist us to further understand this new domain, the PHN commissioned a supporting recovery discussion paper, which provides a comprehensive review of literature on recovery approaches for victim survivors of domestic family sexual violence. So this paper helped us to synthesize the findings to guide the development of recovery programs that address the complex and often multifaceted needs of these individuals. The documents emphasise that a culturally responsive and trauma-informed methods that focus on holistic and intersectional approaches are best. Additionally, the paper explores prevention, long-term support, and tailored interventions for both survivors and individuals that do perpetrate violence. In addition to these healing and recovery grants, the PHN is currently trialling the Supporting Recovery pilot, and those pilot sites are based in Moree and the Central Coast. This pilot is underway and it includes a local care team that provides care coordination for victim survivors and fully subsidised mental health therapies. And these two services work collaboratively to support women and children heal and recover from their experiences of violence. And that trial end date finishes on the 30th of June 2026. We'd like you to note that if your grant application is successful in the pilot regions of the Central Coast and Moree, there will be an expectation that you'll liaise with the local care teams and integrate with this pilot program. I really encourage applicants to review the healing and recovery domain in the National Plan and the supporting recovery discussion and co-design papers that are available on our PHN Domestic Family Sexual Violence website, or you can scan the QR code here and that'll take you directly to them. Next slide, please. So we have two categories in this grant opportunity. These categories focus on, number one, First Nations and First Nations community-controlled organisations and a community-based mainstream services. So in the First Nations category, as mentioned, it will be dedicated to First Nations-led services that are uniquely tailored to support Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander victim survivors. We recognise the importance of culturally safe and trauma-informed approaches that respect and integrate First Nations perspectives and practices. So we wanted to ensure that there was, they had their own stream. Priority will be given to Aboriginal community-controlled organisations or those demonstrating strong First Nations leadership. The second category will support innovative, community-driven mental health models designed to aid recovery for a broad spectrum of victim survivors. So as mentioned, including adults, young people and children. It encourages trauma-informed and holistic approaches that respond to the varied needs of those impacted by DV, fostering mental health, resilience, personal empowerment within their community. We are looking to fund programs that bring creativity and innovation to the recovery process, whether that's going through group therapy, peer support, or other therapeutic interventions that engage with the community in meaningful ways. So both categories aim... Hello? Oh, I'll keep going. Sorry, I thought somebody said hello there. So both categories aim to build a strong foundation for long-term holistic recovery and contribute, hopefully, to a safer and healthier community. Next slide, please. Okay, so here's a list of some of the therapies that would be appropriate. However, we'd just like to note that this isn't an exhaustive list. So we've got here CBT or cognitive processing therapy. Both of these are really well regarded, evidence-based methods that help survivors process trauma and reframe negative thinking patterns and manage symptoms of PTSD. The HOPE intervention model, this intervention is specifically designed for survivors, focusing on restoring a sense of control, empowerment and hope. First Nations healing programs, as we've just discussed, we're looking for programs that really honour and incorporate First Nations cultural practices, values, and provide a culturally safe and responsive space for their recovery. We've got sand play therapy, adventure and bush therapy. So these experiential therapies offer creative, engaging ways to work through trauma, particularly for children and young people, as they tap into the therapeutic potential of play, nature, and physical activity. occupational therapy. This can be really helpful in supporting individuals rebuilding practical life skills and re-engaging in meaningful activities that contribute to their overall recovery and well-being. EMDR therapy, this is an evidence-based approach that helps individuals reprocess traumatic memories, which can be specifically effective for treating trauma-related symptoms. We've got somatic therapies, which focus on the mind-body connection, mindfulness and art therapy, and recovery-focused groups, and wellbeing and social interventions as well. So again, this is not an exhaustive list, but our aim is to allow flexibility for services to implement a range of therapeutic models that best suit their community's needs. Next slide, please. So what is in scope? So multidisciplinary services are in scope. So we know that it can often take a range of different services to address all of the needs that people who have experienced domestic family sexual violence have gone through. So this can include collaboration between different professionals such as counsellors, social workers, healthcare providers, allied health, for example. Trauma-informed recovery-focused mental health. So support services that prioritise trauma-informed care, and domestic family sexual violence informed services as well. So we want services that have a really good understanding of the domestic family sexual violence space and those experiences. We're really keen to see services that look holistically at the whole person. So addressing mental, physical and emotional well-being of individuals, emphasising that whole of person and whole of family approach to recovery. We want services to be culturally responsive, ensuring inclusivity and sensitivity to diverse cultural backgrounds. We've spoken a lot about children and young people, but we're really keen to see specialised support aimed at the needs of young survivors, recognising their unique experiences. Whole of family models of care would be, we'd love to see some of those come through, and outreach and after hours service provision. So, you know, we know that people who experience violence often are employed and need to access services that are after hours, or services that can be provided where people are at, whether that be at schools, whether that be at childcare for children, different hubs for young people. We were really looking for that flexibility in service provision. What is out of scope is general health services not related to domestic family sexual violence recovery. Immediate crisis response or emergency intervention. So again, this funding speaks to the fourth pillar in the national plan. Crisis services are included in the national plan, but this funding sits outside of that. So we're focusing on long-term recovery rather than immediate crisis intervention, which is typically covered by other funding sources. Duplication of existing government-funded services. So we really want to ensure that we don't replicate services that are already funded, to avoid duplication. Child protection services are out of scope. Housing assistance and financial assistance programs. So we know while these are vital, they are not covered in the grant, which is focused on mental health and recovery support. But we would encourage these services to make sure that you're well connected in with some of those other programs that are providing that assistance. Substance abuse treatment. So programs that specifically target substance abuse treatment are out of scope, though collaboration with these services are encouraged. And traditional employment and education services. So programs that are solely focused on this are not included. However, we know that they are an important aspect of recovery. So, you know, we again would love these services to be integrated with the existing service sector or integrated into a recovery focus model. Next slide, please. So our mandatory requirements is that these programs need to speak to the healing and recovery pillar in the national plan. For First Nations organisations, your services need to align to the Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander Action Plan of the national plan. That services are evidence-based and lived experience informed and meet the needs of victim survivors of domestic family and sexual violence. Your organisation needs to hold all of the appropriate insurances required to deliver services. As I mentioned, if your services are being delivered in either Moree or the Central Coast, we expect that you'll integrate within the Supporting Recovery Pilot Program. And we'd love all of the successful applicants to attend and present on their initiatives at the upcoming Healing and Recovery Forum. Next slide. So key dates. So our applications opened on the 28th of October. They close on the 6th of December at 5 p.m. We'll be looking to notify successful and unsuccessful applicants in late January 2025. We anticipate that the project will commence on the 1st of March. The PHN will support you and your organisation in the implementation and the ramp up, and we expect to work in partnership with you. The project completion will be in May 2026, with final reporting due to the PHN on the 1st of June 2026. Next slide. Okay, so thank you, and I'll hand back over to Marissa.
Thanks, Shannon. Okay, so for those of you who are interested in applying, just a little bit about the application process. We use Smarty Grants as our grants portal and management system. So for those of you who already have existing Smarty Grants accounts or a login for Smarty Grants, if you log in and go to our grants program and click on our link off our website, it will take you straight in and you can start your application. If you are new to Smarty Grants, you can create a login just with an email and a password to get you up and running. Can I offer a tip though? If you're an organisation, when you are setting up your Smarty Grants login, please use a generic email, not a personal email, because if somebody leaves, then you don't have access again to all the grants that you've applied under that email address. Whilst we can change it at our end to allow you to log in, it's really good practice to set it up as a generic email that is available for the whole of your organisation from the beginning. So all of our information, as I said, is on our website, thephn.com.au, under our grant section, and we encourage you to go there and read and follow those links to read all the documentation before starting your application to make sure you give yourself the best chance of success. Thanks, Dana. So the grant objectives are, and again, these are all in the guidelines, to increase the available services in the healing and recovery phase. And just to really emphasise what Shannon has talked about, these grants are for healing and recovery, not for crisis support. So please make sure that you address that. They are to enhance mental health therapies, foster innovative approaches, and promote holistic recovery. Now, there need to be community-driven programs, and that these grants are designed as seed funding and for grassroots initiatives, and to address those mental health impacts of DFSV and foster the healing and recovery within the community. So just again, reiterating, there is no ongoing funding from the PHN for your project, but we are going to try and work with you because we do recognise that obviously we would like these programs to keep going, these services to keep going in the community, and how we would assist you to do that. But as the PHN does not have any ongoing funding available. Next one, please, Dana. So what are we looking for? Again, reiterating the holistic mental health therapies, care coordination to support long-term recovery. So not crisis. Improving equity of access. And this goes back to what the PHN is all about, and that is about improving equity of access, and is part of our strategic plan as well. So that is where we focus our funding. It is also to benefit the people of the Hunter, New England and Central Coast regions. We cannot fund outside of area. So please be mindful of that when you're putting in your applications about where you're delivering your program. Now, we're after ideas that strengthen and support the existing workforce and enhance services. So this can take many forms, such as integration of services, maybe using digital technology, using multidisciplinary teams, and we also are encouraging partnerships. And with the partnerships that strengthen and improve the effectiveness and the sustainability of a community response. So again, also when Shannon was speaking, she talked about that importance of integrating with other services that are out there, because this is a continuum of healing and recovery from crisis all the way through. Thank you, Dana, for the next one. The way we assess the grant applications is with a panel, and they will assess based on these 5 criteria with a rating scale. So please pay particular attention to these. These will mimic the questions that are in the application form as well, but this is what you will be assessed on, and it is about how your initiative addresses basically the brief of the grants. So make sure you read the guidelines thoroughly. We're after some level of innovation or new approach, new model, that type of thing, but backed up by evidence of need or unmet need. We're not after duplication of services, so please keep that in mind. Also read our strategic plan and understand about that equity of access as well. And if you can make sure you understand what other of our initiatives in that domestic, family and sexual violence space are happening, particularly in your region, and how you can work in with those as well. Apart from showing you are capable of delivering the project through your qualifications experience and your demonstrated connections to the community, it's also about making sure you can deliver within the time frame of the grants. It isn't a long time frame, so please be mindful of that, particularly if you are planning to recruit staff. When we talk about your connections, it is to your local community. Partnerships are highly encouraged, as we've mentioned as well, but we do support a community response. So we are looking for how you are already embedded into the community and working with the victim survivors. Number 4 is about that demonstrated cultural safety and responsiveness, which we've already mentioned. And of course, all service delivery is to be trauma-informed and client-centred. And 5, again, just some interest in how sustainable or scalable your project delivery is. And again, we acknowledge that whilst we don't have any ongoing funding for your program, that we will look at how we can assist in some way to make your, pitch to another funder as strong as possible. So that can come through that measurement and evaluation, so we can help you build that strong case to take to others as well. Thanks, Dana. So again, just recapping, your projects need to start by the 1st of March, be completed by the 1st of May 2026, with final reporting due by the 1st of June 2026. And you will find a full list of what is in and out of scope in terms of what can be funded that are in the guidelines. But it is the usual things. We are not funding with these grants any major capital, real estate, etc. But please do read those guidelines carefully. And you are applying through the Smarter Grants portal, which can be accessed via the link on our website. Thanks, Dana. We have 1 million available. It is in 3 tiers. So the smallest tier is up to 50,000 with a minimum of 10,000, then up to 100,000, and then of course the largest tier is that $100,000 to $200,000 bracket. There is no fixed allocation per tier. It is going to be based on what strong applications come in and where we put our funding, and it will be over the two streams, both First Nations and community. But just to again press that we are closing on the 6th of December at 5 p.m. There will be no late applications accepted because we expect a very strong response to these grants. Thanks, Dana. I'm just going to hand back over to Shannon to give everybody a bit of a heads up on something else that we've got coming out that you may be interested in as well. So Shannon.
Thanks, Marissa. So as we mentioned, healing and recovery is a relatively new domain in the domestic family sexual violence space in terms of funding. We know that this work has been going on for a long time, but often not adequately funded. So we recognise that whilst we're increasing services in this space, which is fantastic, we also need to build the capability and capacity of clinicians to be able to work within this healing and recovery space. So we want to support people to upskill. So we'll be launching healing and recovery training scholarships on Monday, the 18th of November. These scholarship applications will close on the 10th of January. And again, it's to undertake training courses to support healing and recovery modalities. We've got up to $5,000 per person, or a maximum of $20,000 per organisation for group training. So more details will be available on our website shortly. So as Marissa said, this was just a little bit of a heads up to let you know that this is coming. So please keep checking our website, and we'll also make sure that we'll send out emails to you all once it's up and running and live. Thank you. So that's it for the formal presentation. We are able to take questions. However, as Marissa said, if you had any really kind of detailed specific questions for your own organisation, please feel free to email the grants email at grants@thephn.com.au. But at the moment, Marissa and I are very happy to take any questions if you've got any. Dana, any questions in the chat?
Nope.
No?
We've just said, Lisa said, fantastic to see the training scholarship. So that is an exciting space.
Mm-hmm. I think a few people have left. So if anyone's still on and they'd like just to put their hand up.
Popped through. I second that. Excellent. So we've just got Lisa's just come put a hand up, as well as Cindy, and then we have got a question in the chat box. So Lisa, I might hand it over to you first.
Yeah, can you hear me okay?
Yep.
Hi Lisa.
Great.
Yep.
Hey, yeah, I'm very excited about the training scholarships. That's great. Just a question you were saying, I think Marissa, you were saying about integration. Do you mean if people are already doing some work, they can apply for a grant, I guess, to expand that or add on to some existing work? Is that what you're saying in terms of integrating it, or?
Marissa, are you happy for me to take this one?
Yep. Go.
Yeah, so if there's already innovative work happening on the ground that is evidence-based, but you would like to expand that, I think that would be fine. When we're talking about integration, it also means how you might, if you want to stand up a new service, how you might receive referrals from an existing service system. So for example, a crisis service, making sure that you've got good connection with them, so when people move through crisis into recovery, there's strong referral pathways. Does that answer your question, Lisa?
Yep.
Cool.
Yep, that answers my question.
Lovely.
Thank you.
No worries.
Excellent. And Cindy, did you have a question at all? You had your hand up, but you've since lowered it. All good. Excellent. No problem at all. The question was in the...
We've got a question in the chat. Kath, could you please repeat the opening date of the training grant? So that would be, what did we say, the 18th of November?
The 18th.
Excellent. We have had another one come through in the chat box. Could you confirm the First Nations category can be applied for all organisations, or do we have to be an ACCHO?
Yeah. So priority will be given to ACCOs, so Aboriginal Community Controlled Organisations. However, if you are an organisation that can showcase that you've got really strong ties to a First Nations community or an ACCO with support letters, we may consider, but priority will always be given to ACCOs.
Excellent. And then Matthew, you've got your hand up. Would you like to come off mute and ask your question?
Thank you. Yeah, I was just going to clarify, if we've got existing innovative grants waiting for feedback, are we allowed to pitch something similar for the PHN version, pending the outcome of the other? I guess I'm just worried about that duplication of funding, that's all.
So if you get lucky enough to get both? Yeah.
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah, I would say put it in. You know, these services are really needed. If you are lucky enough to get both, maybe that's a conversation that we can have in terms of what that looks like. So I would just ask that if you were successful in the other grant round, if you could have a discussion with us. But I think there's no harm in putting lots of irons in the fire for this kind of work. Thanks, Matthew.
Were there any other questions? Either feel free to come off mute and ask, or put it in the question or chat box.
Okay, wonderful.
Excellent.
Well,
all right. I will also send out any resources again to registered emails for today's session as well. So that'll just include the Supporting Recovery discussion paper and findings, as well as a link to our website and the grants. If you have any other questions, I'll also attach the email to the grants email that goes through to Marissa. But and please feel free to reach out that way. We look forward to receiving applications.
Wonderful. Thank you everyone for joining. We appreciate your time.
Thank you, and we look forward to receiving your applications.
Thanks.